Hello and welcome to SJP Advisor Stories. In this series, we interview SJP partners and advisors to share their real-life experiences. I'm your host, G for Tit, and if you have any questions that you would like to ask an SJP partner or advisor, please feel free to comment below or reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Harriet Compton, self-employed financial planner at Ronsky Wealth Management. Welcome, Harriet. How are you today?
Thanks, G. Yeah, I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
Very well. And I'm excited to speak to you. We have had our pre-call not too long ago. So I know you've got lots of great things to share with our audience. So the first question we like to ask people is, what does financial advice mean to you?
So I think personally, for me, it's about helping people make good financial decisions with their money. And so that comes in a lot of different forms for different people. So whether that's like setting goals, whether it's just having a conversation and opening up that conversation about money, or whether it's like tax planning and things like that, but just helping them, make the best decisions depending on their circumstances.
Perfect. I love that answer. Thank you. So before we get into the detail, Harriet, it would be great if we could share with people a bit about you and your background. So do you want to share with us what you were doing before you even joined St James's Place?
Yeah, of course. So I guess it starts, I was at university in Southampton. I studied oceanography, which was, great. Enjoyed it at the time. Got out of university and I got a temp job at the head office, so St James's Place head office, which is in Cirencester. And the idea was that I would work there and apply for jobs associated with my degree, like environmental side of things. So I started there, and then after a few months there, I was like, do you know what? I really like this company. They're really lovely. And ended up moving to one of their London offices because I wanted to move to London rather than stick in Cirencester. So I was working as a receptionist and a PA really to some development managers. And it was just a really lovely community and company to work for. At that time as well, I was still applying for oceanography jobs. So it was in my head quite temporary, and it was something I would move on from. But it was a great place to work for. The company was really friendly, and it was a really good way of meeting new people. If you're on reception, you know every single person in the building, so it's a great way to get into a company. Actually, in hindsight, it worked really well. I'd say after, it must have been a year or so when I was in that role, I hadn't got anywhere with the oceanography side of things, which I found a little bit disheartening, but I actually thought, do you know what? I kind of like what I'm doing. I like the company. I don't dread Mondays, which a lot of people do. A lot of my friends at the time absolutely hated what they did. Essentially that all of that coincided with a partner called Ollie, who had approached me and offered me a job as part of his practice and said, look, I need some more admin support and just help running the business. I'd love to get you on board. And it was perfect timing, to be honest. And I said, do you know what? Let's do it. I just want to draw a line, let's move on from the oceanography side of things, and do something new. And, if it doesn't work out, I'll go do something different. But as I said, I really like the company, really like the environment. And I knew Ollie from, socials and things like that. So it seemed like a good step in the right direction. And so while doing that role, I started doing some exams, just so I understood the role better and I could do the technical side a bit better. After a couple of exams, Ollie was saying, do you know what? You'd be a good advisor, I think. If you want to do the rest of the exams, I'll support you through it. And, I'd love to take you on as an advisor if that's what you want to do. So it was very much like a no pressure thing. But I thought, do you know what? I love the client side of things. I find in the exams they're okay. They're challenging in different ways, but I'm just going to keep going at this. And now here I am, 7 years after temping, still here, still haven't left.
Amazing. So really fell into it by accident. So when you started that temporary role in head office, were you familiar with St James's Place and what we do? Is finance something that you had thought of at any stage?
Absolutely not. No, I remember having breakfast on my first day at home, just Googling SJP, what is this? And even after that, I was still quite clueless. And I remember being really confused because at head office, you're dealing with the partners a lot of the time. So the partners are kind of your clients when you're at head office, but the clients are the your clients, I don't know, it gets quite confusing, but I was just I really wasn't sure how the whole setup worked, and had no experience with financial services at all. I really had no idea how anything worked, didn't know what really a pension was or an ISA. I'm from a family that absolutely never talked about money. My parents are wonderful, but they also didn't have a clue. So it was very much a learning curve for us all, really.
Wow. And well, we'll come back to your parents and that comment a bit later on. So tell me about the exams. You're obviously working full time in the practice. You were doing your supporting role there. How did you squeeze the study in, and how did you find the exams?
Yeah, so I studied. I essentially got to work an hour early each day and did an hour study every morning. And yeah, that's kind of all I did. Leading up to the exams, I would work on weekends and things. But yeah, I did all of the exams within a year. I started with the pensions exam, and then went to like tax and then investments and all the rest of it. It kind of all followed on. It was fine to balance it, to be honest. I quite liked the split of having like an hour of just study and then the rest of the day working and doing the rest of the job, because it all feeds into each other as well. You'll find something in your day-to-day role and go, oh, that makes sense now. Or you'll study something and then go, oh, that's that unit trust thing, or whatever it is. They do link in and complement each other really well. So I actually think that having experience of both, like of that role, that admin role, really, really helped me as well, just understand those exams.
Wow. And you jumped in with both feet, starting with pensions and moving on to tax. So they're probably the most technically challenging of the exams. Before you engaged in those, were you worried about being particularly good at maths? Were you particularly good at maths yourself?
Yeah, so I am quite mathsy. I'm not afraid of numbers. But yeah, the pensions one was way harder than I anticipated, I think. But I started with that one because Ollie, who I was working for, was doing a lot of defined benefit pension transfers and also just standard pension transfers as well. And so I found I was like reading all of this technical information and filling out all of these forms, not having a clue what any of it meant. And I'm someone who I need to understand something if I'm going to do it, and I don't want to do something if it's not necessarily right. So I was like, if I do my pensions exam, I'll then understand it and it'll make me better at this job. So yeah, but there's a lot in there that's about historical pensions, like pre 2006 and stuff. So it's just, there's a lot in there that I've never come across since. So it is quite challenging. But yeah, you just got to go for it, and don't be afraid of it. So
Absolutely. Well done. And I think that's very brave to start with that one, but I can understand why, considering you were working with those types of business cases day by day. So we mentioned at the very beginning in the introduction that you are a self-employed advisor within the Ronsky practice. So I guess initially when you were practice support specialist, you would have had an employed contract, and that would have moved at some point across to the self-employed advisor. So do you want to talk us through that transition, and how was that for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was supposed to be signed off as an advisor in, I think we were going to go for May 2020. For obvious reasons, we decided to put that back a bit. And actually, I know a few people who started in, February or January 2020, and they had a really, really tough first year. So I was supposed to start 2020, ended up starting 2021. And yeah, so during that period, I actually managed to save a huge amount of money, which was really, really helpful. So because you weren't going anywhere, I was actually living back with my parents during the time rather than falling over my housemate in a tiny flat in Streatham. So yeah, saved a lot of money, which really helped move from that employed to self-employed role. It just meant that I had a lot to fall back on if I needed it, and it took the pressure off business-wise. But I'd say it was a real shock, I'd say. I don't know if there's a good way of preparing for it. I just think it's always going to be something to adjust to. There's a lot of ups and downs. 1 month can be negative sometimes. On 1 month you might earn a really, really good salary. I'd say what I've kind of learned is, so I put all of my earnings into a business account, and then I pay myself essentially a salary from that. So I have a set income each month coming from my business account to my personal account. And that just means that I know that I'll be budgeting in the right way. I've also got a bit of a reserve in that business account, which is built up so that for bad months, it doesn't really matter because I'm still going to be paid my set salary. It doesn't mean that I'm going to have to, be eating tin soup the whole month. So there's like little tricks and tips that you'll kind of learn, and whatever, works best for you or whatever as an advisor. But yeah, I'd say as well, I personally am just trying to measure myself more on other things rather than just what you earn. It's about, so because if you might have a bad month just because it was, summer 3 months ago and you didn't write the business or you didn't see the clients, and so that hasn't fed into this month's paychecks, it can take a really long time for business to issue and you actually get paid for it. So just because you're having a bad month money wise doesn't mean you're having a bad month advising wise. You might have seen a record number of clients that month and got loads of referrals and have a really good month. So it's really difficult but important to separate like the emotion from that paycheck. So measure yourself. I'm trying to measure myself in different ways as well, of going, right, how many client meetings have I had this month, or how many referrals have I had, or have I done a LinkedIn post, or whatever it is, so you can like make sure you're doing the job properly, and just kind of trusting the process of that will work out long term.
I think that's really sound advice, and thank you for breaking it down in that way that's simple to understand for other people. I think that's going to be really helpful. And tell us a bit more about the practice that you're in. Obviously, there was Ollie. You were working there as an administrator previously. What does it look like now? How many people are there?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started, it was just Ollie, and then he brought me on as practice manager. Essentially, he only had like one file with all of his client stuff in it, and had no systems in place, and I just needed someone to come and just sort everything out and get organized, which I'm pretty good at, not to blow my own trumpet, but quite organized person. And then, over that time now we've grown. So there's 3 advisors now. So there's me, Ollie and Ian. And we've got 2 support staff, one called Ro, who's amazing. She's got so many years of experience. She's just this font of all knowledge. I'll say, Ro, I've got this policy that came in 1987. Like, what is this? I don't understand. She knows it all. She's great. And then we've got Jess as well, who's been with us a year. And she's kind of learning the role a little bit more. The technical side does take a long time to kind of learn. But as a practice, that's kind of how it works. And between us, we've got like 375 clients. So quite a nice size practice.
Wow. So that brings me on to question about those clients then. So you were new to advising. Did you bring clients with you, or have you had to find your own clients? What did that look like for you to get to the stage you are now?
Yeah. So when I moved into the advisor role, I was allocated some of those practice clients to help look after. A lot of those clients would have been based on, because I had a prior relationship with them, a lot of the time they might come to me anyway, and I would deal with a lot of it, and Ollie would just do the advice side. So that transition was fairly smooth with those clients. And then I brought on my own clients as well over that time period. So at the moment, I look after 124 clients. I just checked, 124. So I've brought on about 30 of those. I was initially allocated, I'd say, 40 practice clients. And so the rest of that growth is from essentially referrals within those existing clients. And also, if we'd had new clients as a practice, sometimes they'd be allocated to me instead of going to Ollie and Ian. And most of the time, that's just about personality and fit. I think especially females open up to females a bit better, and that kind of relationship can be easier to build, especially if it's someone who's, I don't know, underconfident, or I don't know. I think generally I get a lot of female clients who I love dealing with, and also people who are like start of their career, so maybe in their 20s or early 30s, who they go, actually Harriet might relate to them because I'm younger than Ian and Ollie as well.
That's great. So you've got a varied people in the practice that can give advice, and depending on who the client is, one might be more suitable to the other. That sounds ideal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So of the 30 that you brought on board that were not referrals from the existing practice, how have you gone about finding those? Is networking something that you do, or do you find them through other ways?
Yeah, so I tried a range of different things. When I first started, I did a big mind map of kind of everyone I knew. So like friends, family. I was part of a netball group, part of an orchestra. And so just really like mapping your network, because you've already got a network that's really well established of people that you know and are friends with. So that was kind of the first step. And I think it's important to just make sure that those people know what you do, because you don't have to do it in a pushy way or like too direct, but it's just, after, I mean, I played an orchestra, it's quite a nerdy example, but like after orchestra, we go to the pub, and don't be shy. Don't say, oh yeah, I work in financial services. It's important to go, oh, I'm a financial advisor, just chat about people's money, really, just help them. I explain as like I'm like a personal trainer for people's money. And yeah, it's great. You've got to like come across as like passionate and confident about it as much as you can, even if you're not necessarily feeling it that day. Try and do that as much as you can. But yeah, essentially let your network know what you do. And then I would say, yeah, I did some networking. I did a lot of because when I first started advising in January 2021, we were still in lockdown at that point. So just before that, and then while I was starting out, I did a lot of like online networking groups, which I found really hard work. You kind of didn't really have a choice at that point. Weren't seeing anyone. And it was probably a good experience, because you have to, you're put on the spot and you've got to, do like an elevator pitch or whatever it is, which, sometimes went well and sometimes didn't, but it's good experience regardless. But yeah, since then I found other networking groups that I prefer, and also I think are more useful and, worthwhile. So for example, I've been to a few like LGBT networks, and they're really lovely, because you can have these like lovely events and really, really lovely atmosphere, where you can just get talking to anyone, and most of the time you're just getting to know them and chatting on like a friend level, and then at the end you go, oh, by the way, what do you do for a living, what is it? And you've built the relationship, and so it's just so much easier as that introduction then. And that's such a healthier way of doing it, I think, and it makes it so much more enjoyable. I just think life's too short to do stuff that you hate, so I now don't do any online networking because I don't like it. I just think you've got to do stuff that you can enjoy. And do you know what, at the end of the day, if you just meet some interesting people and don't get any clients from it, at least you've had a nice time. It's not a total waste of time. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I think I'd be cautious with networking. And actually I probably put too much time into something that I wasn't enjoying, and it wasn't being fruitful either. So you just kind of cut your losses, really.
Yeah, so be open to trying things and actually thinking outside of the box, and not forcing yourself to do something that may not suit you. So some business networks, some people might thrive in that environment.
Yeah.
Others might sort of find it a bit intimidating or not particularly, enjoyable, as you said. So actually there's lots of places that you meet people, and I love the things you mentioned. So your LGBT plus community, you've got your orchestra community, you've got your sporting netball community. Which instrument do you play, by the way?
Oh, the cello. So yeah, I wish I'd played the flute or something now, because it's so annoying to carry. But here we are.
And what about in netball? What position are you?
Oh, I'm just where nobody else wants to go, so I'm jack of all trades in netball. So but yeah, I love it. It's such a great way to meet people, and I've had a couple of client referrals from there. I've got a couple of clients who are from the team, and one of them whose husband is now a client. So that's like such a compliment as well. And it's so much easier to start when you've got that built up trust already and you know them. So yeah, it's been a great way to meet people as well.
Fantastic. I think they're brilliant examples of just, don't put things in a box, just think outside the box and do the things that you enjoy. I think that's sound advice. So talking on clients, you've got your 124 clients. Do you feel like you're carving out like a niche? Do you have any kind of typical clients yet?
No, so my client USP is to work with like nice people. So my business manager just absolutely rolls his eyes at me, but I want to work with people who I like, and that that is a real range of people at the moment in terms of what that list looks like. I've naturally kind of accumulated a lot of female clients, but I wouldn't say that I'm exclusively working with females, because I just think you've got to gel, you've got to build a relationship with whoever you're working with as an advisor. That works both ways. If I'm not going to get on with them, it's not going to work. And it's a long-term relationship. This isn't we've got to do a couple of meetings, sign up the business, and then see you later. Good luck for retirement. You're going to speak to them at least once a year. Most people, it's going to be more than that. And if you're not invested in them, then you're not going to do the right advice. And one advisor once said to me, think of like your client bank as a bus. And so there's only a certain number of seats on that bus, and you can't have everyone on there. So with every client, do you want them on there? Are they going to take up a valuable space because they're preventing somebody else getting on? And so you've got to kind of think about that as well when you're speaking to new people as well.
Well, I really like your criteria that I have to work with somebody that I like and I genuinely get on with. So I think that's a really good lesson for people listening too. And that you do work in a profession where you can do that. You can pick and choose who you work with. And it does matter because you are building those longer term relationships with them. So let's go back to when you were brand new again. So just after COVID, did you feel nervous about giving the right advice to people, or did you get some kind of comfort of all of the safety nets that SJP provide, like the advice guarantee and the business assurance team? How did that feel for you in those early days?
Yeah, absolutely. I was terrified, I'd say is probably the right word, of making sure you're giving the right advice, not missing anything. And yeah, there's a lot to take on. And I think you're fresh out of the exams, you know so much. Your brain is just full of all this new information. And it's very easy to like sit in front of a client and try and tell them everything you know and just pile them with information. And it took a while, I guess, to like, work out what to distill and what's important and what they really need to know and pass that on. But yeah, the advice guarantee from SJP was huge, I'd say. And I think it's, I don't know, even if you're using it to just encourage a client or just give them a bit of I don't know, what's the word? I can't think of the right word.
Peace of mind, maybe.
Peace of mind. Yeah, giving a client a peace of mind that you know what you're doing and it's in their best interest. So for example, with like if someone was doing a pension transfer, once we've had the approval through and we're ready to go through the paperwork, I'll say like, oh, our business assurance team, our compliance team have checked over the information and they agree that this is in the best interest for you to transfer in principle. So as long as you're happy, then, our compliance team are happy. And, here we are, here's the paperwork, let's go. So yeah, I think it gave my clients peace of mind, and maybe it just gave me peace of mind. I can give my clients peace of mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
You know that your advice is being backed up, and you've got a lot of support systems there as well, like business assurance. You've got them that you're working together as a team with them. Sometimes it can feel like you're working against them and trying to get a case through, or them being picky about certain things. But it's important. These things are important to not get wrong. And so, yeah, you've got business assurance and you've got the advice guarantee, which is a really good fallback position. And it's also a real benefit of being with SJP rather than being an IFA on your own. If you don't have any of that support, if you're by yourself. So having SJP is like that background and that kind of cushion is a big comfort for myself as an advisor and also my clients.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And you mentioned in the early part of the interview about your parents initially when you joined SJP temping that they never spoke to you about money. So have things changed? Are they clients of yours? Have they come on the journey with you?
Yeah, absolutely. They're clients. I've bullied them into saving to their pensions and doing all sorts and updating protection. So yeah, it's been great actually, and quite good like guinea pigs to like test stuff on, with like cash flow planning and stuff like that. So I think it's quite normal for families not to talk about money. And if someone said, "Oh, what does your dad earn?" or "What does your mum earn?" most people would not have a clue, like wouldn't be able to pull a ballpark figure out. And that's fine. That's British. It's just how it is. But being able to have those frank conversations is actually really interesting. And especially as you bring like friends and family on board, some people don't want to share it with you, and some people would prefer to speak to an external financial advisor who you're not linked to. And that's absolutely fine. I totally get that. But when people are, especially when they're close to you, when people are open and honest and frank, it's really refreshing. And it really is a lovely thing to be able to help them out with, because you can really give them peace of mind with their finances, to, you know, people that you love the most. So it's a really good thing.
Absolutely. I feel like it sort of becomes infectious when you know how much you can genuinely help someone.
Yeah.
You know, you want to do the very, very best job for them. So you'll probably be the perfect person.
Yeah.
So what does a typical day or week look like then as a financial advisor? You've been advising for 3 years. So what does that look and feel like to you these days?
So I'd say on average, I have about 6 client meetings a week. So some of them might be initial meetings with like new prospects or referrals. Some of them might be review meetings, and some might be like signing up business or something like that. So yeah, say 6 meetings a week. I might do like a webinar or two just to keep that, you know, there's always loads of webinars floating around. Some of them are just absolutely brilliant, and you need to keep on top of it. I feel like you're spinning a lot of plates as an advisor. You need to know what the funds are doing, you need to know what the markets are doing, the like business assurance changes, there's so many plates to spin. So yeah, keeping up to date with some webinars. I might do 1 or 2 of those a week. And then a lot of the time it'll be like admin and just keeping on top of like client servicing and making sure you haven't dropped the ball on anything. As a practice, we've got 2 support staff, as I mentioned, so Ro and Jess, and they're brilliant. But there's still a lot of admin to go alongside that. Some practices have a lot more support staff to advisors, because there is quite a lot of behind the scenes stuff to be doing to just support those meetings, even like meeting prep, especially when you start out. A meeting prep, if you've got like cash flow forecasting in there or a pension transfer, that can be a long time to just get that ready, especially so you're confident enough to present it to the client, because you don't want a client to go, oh, what's that charge? What does that cover? Or what's that fund invested in? And you don't know. You kind of need to, know where to find the information and how to prepare for that meeting. So yeah, it is a range of a range of things in a week. And there's also stuff like events and networking events and things like that. So whether that's within SJP or external, so there's always great things like that going on. Like this Monday, for example, I was at the Women in Finance event at the Bristol office. So it was loads of female financial advisors from across the South. We all got together. We talked about things like imposter syndrome and, dealing with clients and things like that. And so a couple of advisors shared their stories, and it was just lovely. It was just a really nice environment to be able to kind of share and collaborate, and also just celebrate each other's wins as well. So those kind of days are really great. And although you're not like writing business, it's good for your self-development as well.
Absolutely. So let's move on to culture then. What would you, or how would you describe the culture at SJP and the support that you've had?
Yeah, massively supportive environment. As I said, I started on reception and as like a PA. So I was really, really lucky to have massive support from the management team just straight off the bat. And to be honest, they'd never seen me advise or be in that situation at all, but they were still like, you're going to smash it. You're going to be amazing. Da, 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 da. And do you know what even though you're like, I don't know. Having that support and people telling you that means so much, because some days you're going to doubt it and you're going to go, oh, I just had a bad meeting, or oh, I'm feeling really nervous about this. And having people around you who are like, flying the flag for you is really, really important. Yeah, in terms of culture, it is a really lovely place to be. I've been working out like the Knightsbridge office. So there's lots of different practices within one office, really. So, we're all in our own teams. We're all got our own clients. In a way, we're kind of competing against each other. Like, you're doing the same job as a person sitting next to you and both like, vying for clients. But it's never feels like that. Not in the office I'm working anyway. And you're all there to support each other. And, as I was starting out, even as practice manager and then as an advisor, you've got a lot of people around you who've got years of experience, and they're really, really happy to share. And people were so kind and going, I'd say, look, I've got this case. I don't know what I'm doing. What would you do? Or what, have I missed something here or whatever? And so you've got all of that as well. And that like wealth of knowledge of people just willing to share it for, nothing. You might want to buy them a pint in the pub at this next social or whatever, but yeah, it's a great environment to be in.
Absolutely. And I think internally we describe that as the spirit of the partnership. That's probably a term that everybody's familiar with here, which is really nice. And what about from an inclusive perspective? How have you found SJP's culture in that sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I personally came out to the practice, work 2.5 years ago when I started dating my girlfriend at the time. And she also works at SJP, so it was quite difficult to keep it a secret for too long. But it was just, I don't know, it felt like a very big thing at the time. And then as soon as you start telling people, they're like, oh, okay, cool, great, whatever. Doesn't matter at all. My boss was like, is that it? You said you had something to tell me. Is this the end? There's nothing else? There hasn't been any, I've never felt any negativity. And that's probably coming from a really, privileged position to be able to say that, but there's never been any kind of negativity or funny comments or anything. It's just been it's been great. And yeah, and actually it's actually opened more doors. If anything, it's made my network even bigger. I've met we've got a group called SJP Pride, and so you get to meet other advisors from across the country, which is just really, really lovely. Advisors that I probably wouldn't know otherwise. So yeah, it's been a really, really good opportunity, as well as, just, I don't know, it felt like a very big thing at the time. And actually when you do it, you're like, oh no, this is actually great. And people are very, very supportive and there's nothing to really worry about.
Fantastic. I'm so pleased to hear that. Now you recently moved from London to Bristol.
Yeah.
So first of all, what took you there and how does that impact your clients and where are your clients based?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I moved 3 weeks ago today, so still pretty fresh. Yeah, I just wanted a bit of change of pace, really. I do love London, but I'd been living there for 7 years and thought I'm ready for something a bit different. I'm from the countryside originally, and I need greenery around me. So Bristol's a bit closer to greenery, but still gives you the bit of a buzz of a city as well. So felt like it was quite a good kind of next step out of London. But yeah, in terms of clients, I see most of my clients remotely, which I actually much prefer face-to-face meetings. I think you get more out of people. You can know exactly what they're thinking a lot better, and you can build a rapport more easily. But my clients are all over the place. They're in Sheffield, Norfolk, Cambridge, Cornwall, Dover. There's no good place to be to see all those people. And so, yeah, I can see them remotely from Bristol, or if I need to travel, I'll go and see them. But actually, as well, I'm kind of building a network near where I'm from, which said is countryside based. And it's taken some time for that to kind of grow. But actually, now I'm kind of building a client bank. So on Tuesday, for example, I saw 3 clients near home, all face-to-face, and you can do that kind of thing there. When you're in London, you can't do 3 face-to-face client meetings and go and visit their home. There's just no way you would be doing a 14-hour day to fit it all in. So yeah, it's worked quite well actually. Being in Bristol's means I'm closer to home. I can kind of nurture that and network even more, and make it a lot easier to do those face-to-face meetings that I prefer more, and I think clients also get a lot more out of.
That's great. So in terms of next steps, you mentioned you've been advising 3 years. You've got your 124 clients, which is amazing. What's next for you in terms of your next chapter? And what does sort of any support that SJP provide at this stage for you?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the future, I'm going to try and focus more on building my clients in terms of maybe being a bit more focused on who I want to advise going forward. And that's not necessarily, again, I said my clients are really, really lovely. But I found over the past couple of years, I've managed to get a lot of clients who are in their late 20s or early 30s because, they're friends or friends of friends, whatever. And it's absolutely lovely. And I love that they're doing £100 a month into pensions with me. I love that, but I can't live off that. I need to have some bigger fish to be able to keep going and do everything, because I feel like if you have some bigger fish coming in, then that will support the income enough to be able to look after those kind of smaller clients who have the potential to grow as well. That there's kind of a nurturing time now. But yeah, I'm going to try and focus on getting some bigger hitters essentially. And I'm going to try and do that by looking at the bigger clients I look after at the moment and trying to kind of generate a network from them outwards, really, through referrals mostly, which advisors always talk about. And it takes a long time for them to actually start falling into place. The first year or two, you're not going to get a huge number necessarily. But since I've come into my third year, it's now starting and they're coming quite quickly. And it's such a compliment to receive referrals. It means so much. It bolsters the relationship with your existing clients. You start off on a really good foot with your new clients, but it just does take some time for you to build in that relationship with those clients before they're going to give you those referrals. So again, it is just about like trusting the process. It will happen. If you do the best job you can and look after the people you've got, it will happen. So yeah, I'm going to try and nurture the relationships with my bigger hitters, hopefully get some referrals on that end, and that will allow me to look after my whole client bank in a sustainable way and being able to pay the bills at the same time. Hopefully, that's the plan.
That sounds great. And so you've now built this business yourself. You're with a business within a business, effectively. You've got your own clients. So what are you most excited about in your future?
So I guess one of the big things is kind of seeing my clients kind of realize their dreams. That sounds so cheesy, doesn't it? But like you're planning towards stuff like retirement and I don't know, buying a first house or supporting kids. I just like in 10 years time, whatever it is, I'm just really looking forward to that actually happening and then retiring and going, if you hadn't told me to boost my pension savings, I wouldn't be here. Or, you know, I've saved this because you told me to. I had it recently actually with someone who she was putting away like £300 a month into an ISA. And she was going to be buying a house in like 6 years' time. So we're like, okay, fine, we'll start it now. You know, you've got a long time period, etc., etc. Anyway, then things really changed for her. She got a deposit from like an inheritance. So, but she ended up saying, do you know what? I know I've only had it for a year, but I'm going to take that money out of that ISA and I'm going to buy this house now. And because of markets and everything, it actually gone down a little bit compared to what she'd actually put in. But she said, no, I don't worry about that at all. If you hadn't told me to start saving, I wouldn't have put anything away. So I've got all this money that I would have just been frittered on the internet, on like ASOS, whatever. And I've already got this money. So, you know, when you think it was bad advice or it was like, you know, you've done badly, but actually that's still a positive outcome where you're like, oh, you're actually really grateful for this, even though it's not necessarily been what we planned for. So yeah, just examples like that really, I think, will just kind of pay off over the years.
Definitely. I feel like it's such a rewarding role, but you're right. It might take a bit of time for new advisors to sort of see and feel those life-changing moments that you've created for them to start play out. That sounds brilliant. So do you have any final thoughts or pieces of advice that you'd like to share with anyone watching who might be considering this as a career?
Yeah, I'd say it's a great career. It's really flexible. If you're good with people and interested in people, then it's a great role to have. I think you've always got to like stay curious and like be just a curious kind of person. Some people might call that nosy, use whatever word you like. But also I'd say you need to be stable within yourself in terms of like financially, because you like having that buffer of like at least 6 months of expenditure is so key, because if I hadn't have had that buffer when I started, I would have found it a lot more stressful. And the first year or two are hard, and people always tell you that it's hard because you don't no idea where your next client's going to come from. You might be a bit low on confidence if you've never advised before, and so just keep your head down, trust the process, turn up, and like there's it will happen if you put the right ingredients in, you know, it will come out well. So yeah, trust the process and be financially stable, I'd say.
Fantastic advice. And how about if somebody is watching from the LGBTQ plus community, anything in particular for them about this as a career?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say SJP has been really, really supportive. It's been a lovely place to be, really inclusive. And yeah, you can make it what you want as a job. It can be as flexible as you want. And you can, I know a couple of advisors who like focus their careers and focus their client bank on helping LGBT people. So if you can be as specific as you want in terms of where you want your client bank to be. And so yeah, and having extra representation in these roles is so important, because it is still a business that is mostly heterosexual men who are white, and they're lovely. I'm not dissing them; they're fantastic people as well. But it's really important to have a little bit more diversification, because everyone's better for that and the whole world's better for that. So if it's something you're considering, don't be put off by the fact of maybe a little bit of a lack of representation. We need to start this, and we need to be part of that journey as well.
Fantastic. And would you mind if people get in touch with you? And if not, where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn. I sometimes post on there. But yeah, my name's Harriet Compton. I think I'm the only one. So yeah, you should be able to find me fairly easily. Or like through our website, which is like Bronski Wealth Management. So Harriet Compton, Bronski Wealth Management. And yeah, you should find me there. So if you've got any questions, I'm happy to help if I can. And yeah, it's really nice to be part of this. So thank you so much for asking me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's been brilliant having you on, Harriet. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.